In the distant future, long after the last human voice had faded from the stars and the once vibrant signals of Earth had gone silent, the galaxy moved on, civilizations rose and fell, empires expanded and collapsed, and among them all, one truth remained universally accepted: humanity had been a primitive species, a brief anomaly in the grand timeline of intelligent life, remembered only in fragmented archives and dismissed as a minor footnote in galactic history, until the day a team of alien archaeologists arrived at the ruins of Earth, not out of respect or curiosity, but as part of a routine survey, a final classification mission to confirm that the planet once known as the cradle of humanity contained nothing of value, nothing worth preserving, nothing that could challenge the advanced technologies of the present era, because by all known data, humans had never reached the level of interstellar dominance. They had barely touched the edges of space, never mastered faster than light travel, never unified their own world, and certainly never left behind anything that could rival the wonders of more evolved species. And so the expedition was expected to be simple: catalog the remains, confirm extinction, and move on. But the moment their ship entered Earth's orbit, something felt wrong. Not in a way that triggered alarms or system failures, but in a subtle, almost imperceptible way that unsettled even their advanced perception systems. Because Earth was not as silent as it should have been. There were no active transmissions, no energy signatures, no signs of life, and yet there was a presence, a lingering sense that something had been left behind intentionally, something waiting to be discovered. And as the archaeologists descended to the surface, they found a world frozen in time, cities crumbling but not entirely destroyed, infrastructure decayed but still recognizable, as if humanity had not been wiped out by a sudden catastrophe, but had simply left, vanished without a trace, leaving behind their world as a shell of its former self. And this alone was enough to raise questions, because extinction events rarely left such intact remains. And so the team began their investigation, scanning structures, analyzing materials, reconstructing fragments of human technology, and what they found only reinforced their initial assumptions. Human technology was primitive, inefficient, and limited in scope. Their energy systems were crude, their machines bulky and slow, their digital storage laughably fragile compared to modern standards, and for a time, the archaeologists grew bored, convinced that this mission was nothing more than a formality, until one of them made a discovery that would change everything. Deep beneath the ruins of what appeared to be an ancient human city, hidden within layers of reinforced structure, they uncovered a chamber unlike anything else on the planet, a vault, perfectly preserved, untouched by time, sealed with a level of precision that far exceeded the rest of human construction. And when they finally gained access, they expected to find advanced technology, a hidden cache of weapons, perhaps even evidence that humanity had achieved more than previously believed. But what they found instead left them in stunned silence: shelves, endless rows of shelves, filled not with machines or data cores, but with objects so simple, so primitive, that at first they struggled to understand their purpose. Paper books, thousands upon thousands of them, perfectly preserved, each one containing nothing more than ink on pages, a method of storing information so outdated that it had been abandoned by most species long before they reached even basic spaceflight. And the archaeologists were confused, because this made no sense. Why would a species that had access to digital storage choose to preserve its most important knowledge in such a fragile, inefficient format, and why protect it so carefully, so deliberately, as if these objects were more valuable than anything else they had created? And so they began to study the books, translating the languages, analyzing the content, expecting to find nothing more than cultural artifacts, stories, historical records. But what they discovered was far more complex, because these books were not random. They were curated, selected with purpose, containing knowledge from every aspect of human existence: science, philosophy, history, psychology, warfare, survival, and something else, something that did not fit neatly into any category. A pattern, a structure hidden within the arrangement of the books themselves, a sequence that repeated across different texts, different authors, different time periods. And as the archaeologists pieced it together, they began to realize that this was not just a collection of knowledge, it was a message, a system, a way of encoding information that could not be easily corrupted or erased, because unlike digital data, which could be hacked, altered, or destroyed with a single command, these books required interpretation, understanding, thought. And as they continued their analysis, the message became clearer. Humanity had not preserved these books as a record of their past. They had preserved them as a warning for the future, a warning about something they had encountered, something they had understood before their disappearance. And as the final pieces fell into place, the archaeologists uncovered the truth. Hidden within the pages of countless books, spread across stories, theories, and seemingly unrelated texts, humanity had discovered a flaw in advanced technology, a vulnerability that only became apparent at the highest levels of development, a point at which digital systems, no matter how advanced, became susceptible to a form of corruption, not a virus, not a conventional attack, but something deeper, something inherent in the way complex systems processed information. And once that threshold was reached, collapse was inevitable. Systems would fail, networks would turn against themselves, and entire civilizations would fall in a matter of moments. And the only way to avoid this fate was to preserve knowledge in a form that could not be affected, something simple, something physical, something like paper books. And as this realization spread through the team, their initial amusement turned to unease, because this was not just a record of human history, it was a survival strategy. Last effort to ensure that their knowledge would endure even if their technology failed. And then came the final discovery, hidden in the last section of the vault, a single book placed apart from the others, its pages filled with a message that was clear, direct, and impossible to ignore. If you are reading this, it means we were right. The system always fails, and when it does, it takes everything with it. We tried to stop it. We tried to warn others, but we were too late, so we leave this for you, not as a record, but as a choice. Continue as you are and face the same end, or learn from us. Abandon what you trust and remember what we left behind, because, in the end, the simplest things are the ones that survive. And as the archaeologists finished reading, a silence fell over the chamber, because for the first time since they arrived, they were no longer looking at humanity as a primitive species, but as something far more dangerous, a civilization that had seen the end of its own future and tried to warn others. And as they prepared to leave to report their findings, one final question remained. If humanity had discovered this flaw, if they had understood what was coming, then why hadn't they stopped it? And the answer came not from the books, but from their own systems, as alarms suddenly began to sound across their ship, data streams corrupting, networks destabilizing, the very technology they relied on beginning to fail in exactly the way the books had described. And in that moment, as the realization hit them, one thought echoed through their minds: humanity didn't disappear, they were erased. And now the same fate was coming. For them, fearful face fire.